Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Cricket 360. As you all know, everyone, not just Indian fans, Sri Lankan fans, but the world is waiting for Test cricket to resume in India. It's going to be held at Mohali, obviously a fantastic ground. But all the noise and buzz is not about the Test match or the Test series, but obviously everyone's all set to watch out for Mr. Virat Kohli to play his 100th test. And this special episode is dedicated to Virat. I'm going to throw out a very interesting stat. Someone just forwarded me on WhatsApp. I think it's true from what I understand that he is the 71st player to play 100 test matches. He's going to be going out there for the 71st time, without a century. And obviously, he's aiming for his 71st century. I don't know how these things pan out, how people figure this thing out. But hopefully, we'll talk about Kohli. We'll talk about his journey. We want to celebrate Kohli because it's to be, at least it's not about the 71st 100. The man has achieved so much and more for Indian cricket, for world cricket, and for so many different aspects. And for that, as always, I have the wonderful pleasure of hosting Joydeep Mukherjee with me. He is obviously, in the same bubble, as you can all probably see. He's been working very hard, commentating for multiple Ranji Trophy games. And so, Joydeep, welcome. And I'm going to start the show by just getting your perspective on, you have obviously seen, probably as a coach, as a player, as an administrator, you've seen Kohli's journey from the younger cricketing days to under 19 to obviously international arena. In this journey, maybe perhaps 15 odd years or more, what are some of the two or three highlights of Kohli's cricketing career? When you think of Kohli and you think back, what is it that strikes you about the enigma of Virat Kohli?
The first thing that strikes me is the fact that somebody who is so talented and so hardworking and so driven, this combination is very difficult to find. I meet a lot of people who are not very talented, but they're very driven and very focused. I find a lot of people who are very talented, but they're not that driven. But to be able to find that special a player, this driven, and that is a rare combination. So hardworking, so single-minded. He's a once-in-a-generation player, and we are lucky that when Sachin went, somebody like a Virat Kohli came, because those are big shoes to fill. Well, small shoes to fill as in size, but big shoes to fulfill otherwise. So we are lucky that our system, BCCI, keeps producing. Our system is so good. We keep producing players as we speak. We don't know. Yash Dhul could be that player 5 years from now. You never know. That this is exactly how Virat started. And I'm here doing commentary with some people who have seen him from close quarters, and with Rajat Bhatia, who's played with Virat, who played in that game with Virat Kohli, played debut game. Apparently, Virat's and Ishan's debut were in the same game. So they were there. So I'm just saying that the fact that, I get to hear so much about him, how good he was from the beginning, how driven he was. And I have been informed that he has gone to Mohali 5 days before anybody else has, and he's there on his own. And this has nothing to do with the 100th test match. He would do this because he was not playing the white ball matches. He wasn't resting at home. He was in the gym. He was batting in the nets. He's getting ready, preparation. So somebody who's as good as he is, and then so talented and so driven and so hardworking and so single-minded, once in a lifetime player.
Very well said. The keywords I heard was talented, driven, hardworking. And in fact, I was watching Sachin's. He's put out a nice tweet with a video, and he has a wonderful anecdote. So he basically obviously congratulates Virat, and he says, the numbers are numbers, and they will tell a story. He's just about little short of 8,000 runs, 50 plus average, and that's phenomenal. And this is just one format. You make it multi-format, probably he'll go on to be one of the greatest, if not one of the few greatest from India. But I think Sachin talks about an anecdote when they were in Australia, I believe, and they'd gone out for a meal, and they come out, and Virat just suddenly tells Sachin that, Paji, I'm kind of done. I need to kind of really focus on my fitness. Bahut ho gaya. I need to really. And Sachin just says the fact that you actually realize that, and you work towards that goal. Not only did you achieve it, you've also influenced in the next generation of cricketers and probably the country. Today, you see, people want to imitate Virat, whether it's his style, his fitness, the manner in which he approaches the game. It could be the tattoo at the beard as well. Suddenly you see that springing up in various quarters of the Indian squad. So I mean, clearly he's an icon, right? Now let's maybe quickly talk about Virat and Test cricket. Jodhita, obviously people talk about 2014, the Australia series, Steve Smith, Kohli. Was there a particular time when as an observer, as a commentator, or as a fan, you felt that, man, this boy is special? There is something very, and purely from a Test cricket perspective, is there a particular series or game where you felt that he is, he's a class apart from the rest of his batch?
No, I think he's a class apart from everybody else. That's very very evident. But what makes him a class apart is more the angle that I would like to, sort of talk about and try and find out what is it that he has that the others don't have. Rohit Sharma is equally talented. Rohit Sharma is in fact more talented than, in my humble opinion, than Virat. And Virat will probably be the first one to admit that also. But it's also that everything else around him, how driven, his fitness, leaves no stone unturned. He can easily say, I don't need to be so fit. I can still be, I think, 80% as fit and still do as well. But he doesn't want to leave anything to chance. I've seen him on days off in between test matches go to the gym. He's the only one. The Indian team has a day off. Everybody is in their rooms recovering. He's in the gym. But that's why there's only one Virat Kohli. And it all adds up. All the hard work you do, it all adds up. Sometimes in rare cases, it doesn't add up in the field you want it to, but you're blessed in some other way. It'll be taken care of in some other way. But most of the time, all the hard work that you do adds up. And, when he first came on the scene, none of us thought he will go here. But that's what he's made himself. He was already very good, but being very good and being awesome and outstanding and legend are two different things. That's what he's made himself. He was always very good. There's no doubt about it. It's not that he was an ordinary player and he became a legend. He was very good. But there are few styles between very good and a legend and an icon, which he's become. So that is what he's made of himself. And for me, that is the biggest attribute that he has. That he's gone beyond his calling and become something that has made something of himself, which is to be seen that even somebody who's very good can also go to a different level. And his averages, his numbers, I think his passion for the game. I'll give you a small example. So there's Raghu, the sidearm guy. He's in the nets and he really rips it past. So when I've gone to see India nets and I've seen Virat Kohli, Raghu is going full pelt and everybody else is hopping around because Raghu really chucks it hard. That's his job. And Virat is actually taking him on because Virat wants that session to be tougher than what the ball will be tomorrow in the match. So he's actually challenging Raghu and telling him to really go full throttle at him and sort of winding him up. Tera to ball hi nahi pahunch raha hai, to wind him up. So that
Right.
tomorrow when he goes and play the bowlers in the test match, they look slower. This is preparation for me. Where your practice session is always tougher than your match. So your pre-test questions are more difficult than your actual exam. So the exam feels like a bit easier than it normally is. So these are little things he does. When he does fielding practice, he feels as if he's trying to win a game for India. When he's trying to take a catch, it's that catch that will win India the World Cup. There's so much of intensity in what he does. And after 100 test matches, his intensity seems to be increasing. He's been around for a while. Whether it's an IPL game, whether it's a India game, whether it's a game that, India has won and way ahead and 2 wickets to go with maybe 2 overs, 80 required, you see his intensity then. You see him diving for that 1 run. You see him diving for that catch to save that 4. This attitude has made him the player.
Very, very well said. The attitude, the preparation, the intensity. And I want to take on from there. Probably one of my favorite early memories of Kohli is the Adelaide, in Jan of 2012. That particular innings, obviously at the SCG, Kohli, of course, I think he was obviously younger and he was a bit more raw and he was riling up the crowd. There was a very different side of Kohli. Obviously, over the years, we've seen him mellow down. But I think it's just the intensity, the desire to win and not kind of, and he's shown that, and we'll talk about. I'll get your thoughts on that. But I mean, one of my memories, when he scored that 116, we lost the series, but the point is, he showed to me that was probably the first moment that here we are, the series in the last game, SCG. He comes all guns blazing, scores a brilliant 116. The same series, obviously, we had seen, Smith obviously do well, but that desire to win, I think that theme, even later on when he became a captain, I love the fact he's brought in that culture, and I'm sure Ravi Shastri perhaps also has a lot to do with that. That you want to have that in Test cricket, and I think he's made Test cricket interesting. I mean, I think today, for those of us who watch the purer format of the game, games finish in sometimes 3 days, and 4 day games are quite common in Test cricket, and there are results. And I think from an Indian perspective, I think that's a huge change in mindset. I think even with Dhoni, obviously we've had a great run with Dhoni, but there have been occasions where we've drawn the match, we've been okay to play it safe. But with Kohli, we'll go all guns blazing, we'll give it all, we might lose, and obviously there have been so many occasions where that's happened. So just wanted to share my memory of that. From I want to get your perspective of this habit of winning, this desire to win. Do you think this is always there in this Delhi boy from a younger period, or it's happened over the years? And how much of a change do you think someone like Kohli has brought about in Test cricket again, about this whole element of wanting to play to win and not give an inch?
So I think he's always had it. He's born with it. But see, there are others who also have the same will, like a Rohit Sharma does, but he might not show it as much. MS Dhoni does. He might not show it as much. Virat shows it more, but that doesn't mean that he wants it any more than any of the others who don't show it as much. Different people have different, ways of their mannerisms are different. Their characters are different. So, but this is what gets Virat going. This is what gets his juices flowing. This is what helps him to play his best, to field his best, to captain his best. So he's like that. MS Dhoni, if he acted like this, would probably get ruffled and not do as well. But he needs to be calm and composed for it to do better. I think Rohit is cut from a similar cloth. So it's also what your temperament is that comes into play. What works for you? So there was Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe on two sides of the net, both very good players and both going hammer and tongs, both winning in 5 sets, one going this way, one going the other way, with totally different temperaments. So it's important what works for you, so you stick to that. I don't think if Dhoni was like Virat, it would have worked for him. And I don't think if Virat was like Dhoni, that would have worked for him. But what's important is what works for them is what they stick to.
And let's talk about, just get your thoughts on him as, I mean, we'll talk about obviously a bit more about his batting, special moments, etc. But Kohli, the Test match captain, I mean, what works for him? Are there any specific anecdotes, highlights from your memory, from your experience that kind of makes you feel that the reason why Kohli has succeeded as a captain? I mean, winning series in Senna. I mean, unfortunately, South Africa didn't work out in the recent past. But outside of that, he's had a stellar career as a Test cricket captain. What did he do differently as a captain or as a batsman captain that made the difference vis-a-vis Indian captains in the past?
No, I think he had a very good team. He also, I mean, let's not take anything away from the win, but also that wasn't the strongest Australian side that probably we have gone and played. So it wasn't. If you talk about the Australian side in the mid 90s, in the 2000s, it was a different team. A lot of people say that in 2003, that World Cup final we lost. If that team was playing now, I mean, they'd be still winning. So it's also who you play. So Australia are obviously not what they used to be, but you can take nothing away from India in that, because what I liked about his captaincy is the aggression he brought. I think aggression can be brought by two ways. One is MS Dhoni was, I think, equally aggressive with his captaincy. Might not be his body language because didn't work for him. But if you see his field settings, if you see his bowling changes, if you see, the way he got about his team, he was aggressive as well. And I'm sure Rohit is also. Virat, the fitness bit, it actually went to the others in the team, the youngsters who came, the KL Rahuls and all, the Mayank Agarwals. They looked up to him. They said, "How is this guy so good? What are the reasons?" And they figured out. I remember he was playing a match in Calcutta in 40-degree heat, and he was taking 2 runs. It wasn't even panting, wasn't even breathing hard. And the other guy was taking 2 runs, was in his haunches. And the other guy was batting on 14. He was batting on 83. So when people see this, when I see this in a dressing room sitting, and say, "Wow, I want to be like that guy." So that's when that's the sort of impact you have without actually having an impact. Just by seeing you, people, young players want to be like you. And with his captaincy, I think, yeah, what I liked, he was an aggressive captain. He was on in the face, and he didn't take a step back. Even when we lost, even when he had a poor series in England, he didn't take a step back. He got ready, he went next time, and he got the runs. But he never took a step back in a fight. That for me is his biggest quality.
Yeah, there
You
was a
don't
period when I
yeah, you don't win every fight, but he would stand there and get defeated, but not take a step back.
Very well said. You don't win it, but again, you just got to be there fighting and giving it a shot till the last ball or the last last day or that for that matter. And sometimes I used to feel that there was a period when probably the only thing he could have done better is win a few more tosses. But talking about fitness, I always think, and clearly, if all goes well, if he keeps his fitness regime, which there is no reason for him not to, unless there are some unfortunate injuries, he might be able to extend his career now that obviously the load of captaincy is gone as well. But I quickly, before we get to the future of Kohli, I want to draw everyone's attention to 2016. I mean, sometimes when I look back, he's still young, but if I look at the last few years, obviously the reason I want to bring this up is because the last year plus there's only been chatter about the 71st century and runs not being scored, etc., etc. But let's also celebrate, some of the things that the man has achieved. 2016, I mean, a staggering year. 1457 runs, including 5 centuries, of which 3 were double tons. I mean, he became the first captain to register 9 Test wins in a calendar year, and a third to score 3 double centuries in a year after the great Sir Donald Bradman. I mean, phenomenal year. Sometimes the way you look at Sachin and '98, perhaps. Of course, Sachin's had quite a few good years, and he's obviously made some great comebacks. But 2016, any thoughts on that period, 2016 to 2018? Do you reckon that's his peak, and maybe then we'll move on to discussing what's the future of Kohli from here on.
Yeah, I would like to say that that was one of his peaks, because when you play for that long, it's just not a peak and down. It's not that you're just rising and coming down. There will be lows, highs. That's how it is. So it's not that your graph is just going to go up and then all the way down like that. So you could go up and then waver a little bit because you're playing for such a long time. So more like an ECG really, where you're sort of stable a little bit here and there. So when you play for as long as Virat has, there will be some periods where it will be a bit of a lull, and I don't see him. Uh, he's not at his best. Everybody knows that, but I don't see him. Maybe 20%, 30% of his best. He's not 80% of his best. So he still gets runs. He still wins matches. Yeah, maybe that 100 that everybody is talking about. All the greats of Indian and world cricket have gone through this. I have numbers for you. I can put that. If you talk about all the greats who have played 15 years, 18 years, 20 years, they've all gone through this. You cannot play 20 years the same way. There will be some highs and lows. But because you have played for so long, you also get a longer rope. You also get that extra bit. That's why Pujara and Rahane got a longer rope also. Anybody
Yeah.
else with what they've had in the last 6 months would have lost their place earlier. But because they played 80, 90 Test matches, whatever, because they've been ex-captains and number 3 for so long, they got an extra rope, and then somewhere they pulled the plug. But if it was a 20 Test match player, they would have pulled the plug much earlier. So in Virat's case, I can't imagine an Indian team in any version without Virat in this form, because I feel he's irreplaceable. I feel this
Very,
team
very
is
well said.
looking, yeah, I feel this team looks, one of the main engines are missing in this team. Because
Absolutely.
him not at his best also is so good.
That's exactly the point. If you can go, for nearly 2 years without a century, 71 outings without a century, and your average is still 50 plus, I think that even mathematically that says something. I mean, growing up, you would see that when someone was out of form, they would be getting out in single digits, less than 20. But here, the man still probably scored a 40, 60, 70, and these are crucial. In fact, before we talk about Mohali, it's also about the mental fitness, the mental battles. Some of you may have seen the ref sports videos where what the likes of Steve Smith and McGrath, etc. How highly they regard the competitive spirit. To me, the other incident that comes to mind is his battle and his comeback against England. Jimmy Anderson in 2018. Obviously, we know the previous series. It was Anderson was all over him. But and Anderson is another genius, who's kind of elongated his sporting career, and he's only gotten better with time. But for Kohli to come back and score that 593, of course India lost 1-3, but to come back and score 593, change his approach. I think those are moments for me, that the fact that someone can fight their own mental battle. Jodhita, you mentioned this, that beyond the point, so much is about the preparation, the mindset, and not just necessarily the talent. And also, would love to get your perspective is, for someone who's already so good, imagine Kohli 2016, fantastic year. Now he has to go to England, and someone, either yourself or the coaches, are saying, look, you've got to adapt. Don't play this shot outside off. Don't do this. Don't do that. How difficult is it? Talk us through the process. What does a batsman need to do with so much hype, so much media pressure, so much skepticism, criticism? When you know that, okay, I'm going to go to England, I need to lead my team to victory, but I also need to, lead from the front, and especially I need to fight this battle against this particular bowler called Jimmy Anderson, who's one of the greats. How does one do that? How easy is it to make these changes?
So he had some technical issues which he faced on the earlier tour, and there was a lovely split screen done by Nasir Hussain on the previous tour and this tour, and the changes he made. He got straighter. He's got his bat to first slips, his left shoulder to the right chest of the umpire. All the things that we are taught. He got a lot more orthodox. And in England, where it seems around, you need to be a little more technically sound than you could. In Australia, it's more of bounce. You get away with bounce. With bounce, India has never had issues with bounce. India's always had issues with lateral movement. And so England in 1996 they won the series 1-0. Then in 2002, they drew it because of a flat wicket. In 2007, they lost. Then they had a rain check and said, listen, guys, why are we playing India on flat tracks? Because they are the best team to play on flat tracks. The last two times we played on flat tracks, we once only drew, and then the other time in 2007, under Rahul Dravid's captaincy, they won the series. So let's start playing them on seaming friendly conditions. And since then, we've had issues. Since 2011, we've had major issues in England. Having said that, what Virat did was he got his game ready. He knew what the issues were. He went to whoever was looks after his batting, and he got ready. He was playing in seaming conditions. He was having side arm with new balls on green pitches to replicate what he might have to face. And when he went there, he was ready. So it's just about knowing what the problem is, finding out what I need to do, getting it done, and being ready. So it's a process of first, what is the issue? Okay. How can I fix it? Okay. What are the things to do? Okay. Here I am doing it. Okay. I'm ready. So it's a 5-part process. And he didn't say, I'm Virat Kohli, whatever I do, I get away with. He went to his coach and said, sir, I'm having some issues. What to do? And he was told, and he's got it fixed. So that's the humility. That's the smartness of the man. It just goes and shows what went wrong. Because sometimes when you're also playing, faults creep in without you knowing. So then when you see, that's the reason why, and then everything falls in place again. Because somebody in 2016, Virat Kohli, or 2014, it's not that he didn't know, but obviously because you play every other day, small faults creep in, some things change, and one thing leads to another. Which is why he went back to the drawing board, got fixed, came back and showed the world what he can do.
And I'm very sure if that that method has kind of worked, helped him back in the day, I'm sure over the last year and a half, he must be doing the same. And what's amazing is, Rahul Dravid said this as well, that in the nets, so did Vikram Rathore, that in the nets, Kohli looks fantastic. He's connecting. Kohli himself has said that, again, I think you also mentioned this,
Yeah, just on that, in 2014 in England, there were issues. Now there is no technical issue. So there's nothing to work on. So that's the major difference. There he was told what to do. He fixed it. He got straighter. His bat was to first slip. Before it was slightly going out. He's playing away from the body. All that in a nutshell. Now none of that is happening. It's just that he's batting really well and he's getting out. That can happen. There's a period that can happen. He gets another 170 tomorrow and then things turn around. Another 500's coming up in the year. So that's the sort of player he is. I don't think we need to worry about his 100. I don't even think every time he walks into bat, I just want him to do really well. But I don't worry about his 100 because I know it's going to come.
Spot on. I was just going to say that exactly. I think this time the difference is he's looking good. He's batting well in the longer format, and I think it's a matter of time. And we obviously wish him well. And we really, really hope that he has a good long Test career because, as you said, there could be young upcoming talent. We obviously have the Shubman Gills, etc. Obviously knocking the door. But Kohli is far, far. I mean, for some of the critics who might be watching as well, he's far, far from finished. I mean, this guy can walk into any test side, if I can say so, and he looks so solid. And it's again not just the batting, but it's the competitive spirit. He's always involved. Obviously, he's no more the captain, but as he says, you don't need to be a captain to lead. You can lead from the slips. You can get the body language up. I remember that fabulous game in Eden where he got the crowd going as well to support. Because again, these are small things. When things are not happening and the bowlers are toiling hard, just to get the crowd cheering the bowlers could do the trick. You could suddenly encourage your fielders and to change their body language, and on run out could make things happen. So I mean, obviously we want this to go ahead. So let's really, yeah.
Also on that, I think he's also just entering the best phase of his life as far as the batter is concerned. They always say, Dilip Vangsakar said this first, that between 30 and 35, 36 is the best phase of your life as a batsman. Because you've done the hard miles, you know how to score runs. It's just a question of finished product. Okay? So I think Virat's best is yet to come. And that's a big statement. I really feel so. I say from now, he's 31. So from now till about he's 36, 37, as fit as he is, as motivated as he is, I think once he puts on the India shirt and the India helmet, he doesn't need any motivation. That's good enough. So somebody has driven. He's been everywhere in the world. He scored runs against every opposition, home and away. So now it's sort of milking time for him in the next 6-7 years. So I have a feeling that he'll burst the bubble. He'll go where nobody has gone.
I really hope so. I mean, that's what is required for Indian cricket, for Test cricket. That's what we want the next generation to see in the next 7-8 years. And you're right. I mean, he's just 31, and with the sort of fitness he has, if he can extend to, I don't know, even 38, 40, you never know with the sort of fitness he has. That's 8 years. I mean, there are people who don't play that long in their career. So hopefully we get to that. But I want to quickly get to Mohali. Obviously, really happy to see 50% stadium capacity. People are queuing up. People will be there. Obviously, audiences. He's a showman to some extent as well. He loves the crowd. But the question there, I mean, like you said, time to milk. Do you reckon that he is likely to score or to play more competitively when he has a far more challenging opposition than a Sri Lankan side? Again, we'll talk about Sri Lanka, as we've spoken across formats, is going through a transition. Do you reckon that statement you made that we'll see the best of him likely to come out in Australia, in England, in South Africa next time? Or he doesn't matter, the man's motivated enough?
Yeah, I think once you're on song, it doesn't matter who the opposition is. If everything falls in place and you're in rhythm, it doesn't matter who's bowling to you. And he's not the sort of person who will play one way against Sri Lanka and one way against Australia. He's always gives his best. He always gives 100%. That's what I love about him. Even when he gets out first ball, the intent with which he goes into bat shows that how much he cares to bat, how much he loves batting, how much playing for India means to him. So that is the reason why I just love the guy for the way he plays his cricket. I think he's a once-in-a-generation player, and he will give it all he has. After that, whether he gets a first ball duck or whether he gets 300, it doesn't matter. Because somebody who gives it all, you can't ask him for anything more.
High praises, and this can't be enough. But thank you so much, Jayadipta, for giving us your thoughts on his career history. I mean, the words that I'll take away from my audience is intensity, hard work, attitude, humility to kind of accept your flaws and work towards it, and just to keep practicing, keeping that rhythm on, fitness on. The man has 7-8 years ahead, hopefully. We're wishing Kohli all the very best. Let's not forget, ultimately, it's a test match between two nations. Wishing India and Team Sri Lanka. It'll be great fun, I'm sure, for the Mohali crowd. The 50% who kind of get in, who are probably still figuring out their tickets. They'll have a good fun time. So, yes, whilst it's Kohli's 100 test match, which is massive, the 12th India to do so. But let's watch out for some good, hard-fought Test cricket, because that's at the end of the day what most of us cricketing fans love. Jayadipta, thank you so much for having us here. Enjoy the rest of your stay in Gujarat, and we'll catch you soon.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you.